right now they're claiming they have an
Yeah.
agreement,
Yeah.
but they don't have the same documents.
Yeah.
So each side saying, "Oh, I got agreement on this," and like Iran, "Oh, we're going to get $12 billion up front." And the United States is saying, "Hell no, they're not getting $12 billion. They can go pound sand. That's not going to happen." So that's still being worked out. That's why I say this. I think this thing will be derailed by Friday.
Could be. Israel is just doing everything. Smotrich just moments ago he said that they have never experienced such pressure, international pressure on Israel, basically on Benjamin Netanyahu. This is a new level of pressure on Israelis. And J.D. Vance in the interview said that Israel has to come to the table. It means that I don't know how serious is that. Let's see what would happen. I think J.D. Vance, his record is not positive. Look at what J.D. Vance said so far.
Yeah, but look, Donald Trump does hold the power over Israel if he is willing to use it. And the big issue is he willing to use it? Israel depends right now on U.S. air refuelers in order to carry out strikes on Iran. So if Israel wants to re-engage and attack Iran, they need U.S. air refuelers. Now, without that, they can't. So here's, Trump has it in his power to say, okay, we're calling all those back. We're ordering all U.S. assets to return immediately to the United States. That would send one message to Israel.
Yeah. Here is J.D. Vance. We are extending an open hand to Iran. If they want to change their relationship with us, we will change our relationship with Iran. And I think it's too far to say that, because you're fighting. You basically are fighting each other right now. You have some sort of document, a new sort of understanding, memorandum of understanding, and you're talking about far away from the point that you are at right now. And the other point in what J.D. Vance said, that I think there are elements, he says, within Israel that like the deal quite a bit. I think this is a total lie. Have you seen anything coming out of Israel that somebody or some people, some factions within the Israeli government or Israeli society who are important among the decision makers in Israel that are happy with the deal?
Well, I don't know. Have you seen any evidence whatsoever?
No, I haven't seen.
There's nobody in Israel happy with this deal at all. So that raises the next question, that Israel left to its own, if it can rely upon U.S. support, it's going to do whatever it wants. But it looks like Trump was mad enough that he may have forced the issue. So we'll see. I said, Trump, the Israelis do not have KC-135s. I checked that out. I thought they did, and I started researching it last night. I was shocked to discover they don't. So they use an older variant of they do have air refuelers, but they don't have the fleet that the United States has. And frankly, those planes that had been based forward at Prince Saud Air Base is one of the major refueling stops. Now, but Israel in the future, they're not going to have permission to overfly Saudi Arabia. So if they want to attack Iran, they're going to have to fly over Syria and over Iraq and over Jordan. If Iraq had air defense systems worth a damn, then Israel wouldn't be able to overfly that. But Iraq doesn't. So Israel just ignores them and keeps flying.
Yeah. I think the GCC countries are happy right now, because if the strait is working, if there is no blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, outside of the Strait of Hormuz, they're going to be able to export more energy, oil, whatever they have. but you remember the damage that has been done during the war. It may take time for them to
Oh no! Wait a second. It's don't say may take time. It is going to take time. There is physical damage to oil wells, and especially in Qatar to the liquid natural gas facility, that some say is going to take a year to repair. And if that takes a year to repair, that means the whole issue of helium production, man, that's out the door. So right away, you're 10% down in liquid natural gas, 44% of the world's helium not coming out of the Gulf right now. So this, even if the Gulf is opened on Friday, unrestricted traffic. Number one, you got all these ships that have been sitting there for 3 months. They've got barnacle buildup. They're not ready to go back to sea. They're going to have to be serviced. What is that? 200? I've heard as high as 1,000 ships, and some say it's just 200. But it's a large number of ships that are going to have to get serviced before they can even begin to go out back to sea. Then the damage. I don't think we've got a good, accurate assessment of the damage to the oil wells. How much can actually be pumped? How much can actually be put on board ships? And then once you get it on the ship, you're looking at anywhere from, I guess, the soonest it can get to a location might be a month. And in other cases, it could be 2 to 3 months. Those ships will be at sea heading for their destination. So all this euphoria about, oh boy, the economy is going to turn around, like Trump says, it's not. And that reality is going to hit at some point. They keep pretending like, oh yeah, this is the relief, the oil shortage is gone. No, it's not. And I'm increasingly frustrated with what I see as just this insanity.
JD Vance was asked, what is the Gulf coalition saying about Trump's peace deal? He said they love it because they see it as an opportunity to build and create a new Middle East. I think that's totally dependent on what Israel is doing in Lebanon and in Gaza. You cannot ignore what's going on. Do you think, Larry, you've mentioned the limitations of the Israelis if they decide to attack Iran with the refueling tankers, all of that complexity, not only the offensive part, but in terms of their defensive, their capability, air defense system, they have their sort of problems. And what is the solution? Today I talked with Carl Jacquebeau. He says the only solution to what Israel is doing is a total defeat by Iranians.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, there's no halfway mark. Israel's going to have to lose. And that's, not going to make the Israelis happy, but their entire ethnogenocidal project is going to have to come to an end. That right now the Ben Gvir's and Smotrich attitude to exterminate the Palestinians and anybody else who's not Jewish. That's why they're threatening Turkey. That's not an idle threat either, and that's not coming from Ben Gvir. Good God, it came from was it Naftali, the former, is either Bennett or Naftali, one of those guys. So someone considered somewhat mainstream, threatening Turkey. You can't. This is just crazy talk. You can't make that up.
JD Vance describes the agreement as, he says, it's fundamentally built around a two-step verification process. We say to the Iranians, you are welcome to have access to an unsanctioned economy. You're welcome to be reinvited into the world economy, but only if you honor the commitments that you make in this agreement? To be honest, I see no commitment in this agreement for Iranians. I don't know, other than Iranian nuclear program, what are the commitments? And because in terms of the Strait of Hormuz, it seems that the Israeli attack on Lebanon and the Iranian response, Iranian retaliation, somehow forced the Trump administration to put that line about the Strait of Hormuz,
Yeah.
to put that line about Lebanon in the MOU, as it was mentioned last night by Professor Marandi. That's my understanding. But the commitment that he keeps talking about, it's all about nuclear program. The enrichment, I think zero enrichment is just not the case anymore. They're not going to accept it. And the United States has somehow agreed on. And it's going to be the level of enrichment and the nuclear program, the production of nuclear bombs. That's the whole commitment on the part of Iranians. What else do they want from Iran in terms of commitments?
Yeah, no, well, that's what I said. We don't know. It's nothing spelled out. Again, Iran has released a document saying, okay, this is what we've agreed to. U.S. hasn't. So until the United States releases a document, all we're doing is, wasting time speculating. We don't know. All we can do is go off we got what J.D. Vance has said. We've got anonymous U.S. government officials saying the exact 180-degree opposite from what Iran is saying. Someone's lying. Real simple. Like Bagay said, the release of Iran's frozen assets and compensation for war damages are two key economic priorities, and that the U.S. is committed to implementing them. Okay, when? Now, immediately, up front? 60 days from now? 90 days from now? Next year? Yeah, this is where you're going to do this kind of agreement. Spell this stuff out specifically. Who does what and when do they do it? And you get a clear benchmark. So, the United States says, okay, we want you to sign this MOU on Friday, and Iran should say, great. Let's see that $12 billion now. Not promise us, we'll get it to you sometime after you sign the agreement on Friday. No. That's not how this works. You've now got to put money in up front. And I think supposedly that was what Iran gained some concessions on that front yesterday, when after the Israeli attack on Dahia, Iran was going to pull the plug on the negotiations. The United States basically bribed them to stay on. Okay, specifically how much money, when is the release, etc. And that we don't know.
Smotrich today said that Israel will continue to act with every tool at its disposal to overthrow the murderous regime in Iran. Do you think that the United States is still there with Israel in terms of regime change, or the United States has changed its mind about the regime change because of the outcome of the war?
Well, it doesn't matter what the U.S. mentality is, whether they change their mind or not. The reality is the United States cannot change the regime in Iran. So, whether they believe and want to do it or not, that could be a policy priority. But again, this just highlights the lack of consensus between the United States and Iran. That we've got two different agreements, I think, and they haven't been reconciled yet.
Yeah. Ben-Gvir. Here is what Ben-Gvir said moments ago, Larry. A sovereign state is not a subcontractor of any superpower. It's not obliged to agreements that shut down its ability to defend its people. In the face of existential threats, we must act under external pressure, but according to our own conscience. Just as a person is obliged to do what is necessary to protect his home, the state of Israel is obliged to do everything necessary to protect its citizens. Is that I think the whole concept of occupation right now is the main issue when it comes to Lebanon, to Gaza, and to Syria. And do you think that the United States is putting pressure on Israel on that front?
Well, they're trying to. Again, look.
Because Larry, to be honest, when they say a sovereign state, I don't see Israel is sovereign the way it behaves. Without the help of the United States, they're not capable of doing any of these activities, these occupations.
Well, no, that's right. Look, Israel is still very much in a, let's call it a paternalistic relationship with the United States. The United States dominates Israel. But the Israelis have managed to turn the tables, because even though Israel is dependent on U.S. economic and military support in order to maintain its so-called independence, it has bought and paid for the political system in the United States. They essentially effectively control the Congress, and they have exercised significant power and influence over Trump. Trump is not an independent actor. So that's where you got the disconnect. As I've said all along, Trump has the power. He has the power. He can do this. He can shut down Israel, but he does not have the will. Whether it's because he's politically aligned with them or he's afraid of their political backlash, I don't know what that is. I can't give you the full explanation, but all I can tell you is that he could stop this in a heartbeat, and he has refused to do so.
Yeah. Here is, Larry, what J.D. Vance said about $300 billion of reconstruction fund to Iran. Because as you know, they were talking about this. The Iranian media was talking about this, but we haven't heard that much from the Trump administration about this money that they want to send to Iran for reconstruction, or they want to give it to Iran. Here is what he said.
The Iranians are saying that they're going to have access to a $300 billion reconstruction fund. True or false?
Well, Ed, that's the sort of thing they could have access to, funded by the Gulf Coast Coalition, so long as they honor their end of the obligation. I think that one of the things you're going to see, Ed, and people have to be skeptical of this, is that the hardliners in the Iranian system will overemphasize the benefits that Iran gets while underemphasizing all the things that they have to concede and all the things they have to provide in order to get these benefits. So we absolutely are open to the Gulf Coast countries investing in the reconstruction of Iran, but only if Iran ends their nuclear program, ends their enriched stockpile of material, and is really open to an inspections and enforcement regime that gives the American people confidence they're never going to have a nuclear weapon. So I think the dance you're going to see, Ed, which is going to be interesting, is the Iranian media, especially the hardline media, they're going to talk a lot about what they get without talking about what they give. It's important for all of us to correct that record.
Yeah. Here is what J.D. Vance said. What do you make of it?
Like I said, this is the U.S. is going to portray this as an agreement that ends Iran's nuclear program. And Iran has not agreed to do that. Iran has agreed that it's not going to build a nuclear weapon, or previously agreed that they would not build a nuclear weapon. But their, Pakistani sources are telling Pepe Escobar and me that the Iran's prepared to issue this ultimatum to produce a nuclear weapon now, just to force the issue with the United States. So I fully believe what the Pakistanis are saying, that they believe it's true. Whether or not that's what Iran believes, that's a whole nother issue. but they're not going to give up enrichment of uranium. They will probably allow the downloading or the degrading of the existing stock of 60% in order to get a deal. But Iran's going to insist that, hey, we're a sovereign country. We're signatories to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and we've been frankly misused and abused by the IAEA. So they're not going to surrender their sovereignty, and that's where Vance has it wrong. So, but I keep returning to, we don't know what the agreement is. We know what Iran thinks the agreement is, and it appears that we know that the United States has a different view from what Iran agrees that what the agreement says. But we haven't seen the U.S. draft yet. Until we see that, we're not really going to be in a position to know what the hell they'd be signing on Friday.
I think my understanding, Larry, is that if they give the money to Iran, it's not going to be from the United States. It's going to give it through the GCC countries. And Donald Trump can come out and say, I didn't give anything to Iran. And it's GCC countries that is paying all of this. The fund for reconstruction, the frozen assets are going from UAE or from Qatar to Iran. I have nothing to do with all of that.
Right.
That could be the argument on his part.
Sure. But there's still these are assets frozen in U.S. accounts, and they still have to be transferred out of U.S. accounts. And is Iran going to accept the payment in dollars or in Chinese yuan?
No.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him say we got to make the payment in yuan, because they're going to keep the money in Chinese banks, so it can't be touched by Western sanctions.
And the reason I say this, because I don't know how come all of a sudden we see Qatar going to Iran 2 times and talking with it, because it was all about Pakistan doing everything, negotiating, sending messages, coming back and forth. And you see Qatar 2 times they're going, while the United States was attacking Iran, they were in Iran.
Right.
The night that they have announced the agreement, Qatari government, the delegation was in Iran. This is the question, I think, what they're doing there.
Well, Iran has had a good relationship with Qatar. Yeah, it goes back, 7 years, 8 years, when the Saudis and Emiratis tried to isolate and embargo Qatar. And the one country that provided humanitarian assistance and support was Iran during that time. So, and part of Iran's motivation is that the Qataris were willing to provide support and be a mid-station for getting aid and armaments and other material aid to Hamas.
And here is what J.D. Vance said about GCC countries investing in Iran's economy. And I think here is what he said.
Are open to the Gulf Coast countries investing in the reconstruction of Iran, but only if Iran ends their nuclear program, ends their enriched stockpile of material, and is really open to an inspections and enforcement regime that gives the American people confidence they're never going to have a nuclear weapon. So I think the dance you're going to see, Ed, which is
so talking about trying to go back to the JCPOA that they tore up. So
exactly.
Exactly.
I think that's the outcome, because they kept this argument. If you recall, it's all about the Iranian nuclear program. They have never accepted, Donald Trump, at least, and his administration, that they wanted to do regime change. They said it, but they didn't say it is a regime change. It is some sort of regime change. We're going to change the leadership. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Nothing of that sort has happened. But whenever the mainstream media was asking them, what is the off-ramp? The only thing they were telling us, they said, nuclear program of Iran. They have to say they're not going to produce nuclear weapons. And Iranian nuclear program, it seems that the United States backed down on its position. no enrichment, gone. That 60% enriched uranium that's going to go to the United States, that's gone. It's going to stay in Iran. If they decide to downblend that enriched 400 kilograms of enriched uranium, is going to be in Iran, not outside of Iran.
Right.
So they have the off-ramp. They have created the off-ramp for themselves.
You mean the U.S. has created the off-ramp, or the Iran?
The United States, because they said it's all about the Iranian nuclear program. Here is J.D. Vance talking about if the GCC countries want to invest in Iranian economy, the main problem would be Iranian nuclear program. I think there is no problem with that. Iran has, they had it, as you mentioned, the JCPOA, and nothing has changed since then.
But let's be clear. The whole focus on the Iranian nuclear program is just an excuse. This was not about Iran getting a nuke. That was the excuse, the justification that was used for starting this war, because Iran had been very explicit in his public comments that it was not interested in a nuke. And the only reason it went to the 60% level was to try to compel the West to come back to the negotiating table that ultimately the West walked away from, and Donald Trump tears up the agreement. And France, Germany, and the UK, they don't do what they promised to do. And so Iran, after having made a number of concessions and allowing all these IAEA inspectors in, gets no sanction relief. So this is, like I said, this is just an excuse, and that's where I think, I think Iran needs to do a better job of defining its interests and just asserting, say, hey, this is our interest. This is what we're going to do, and we're not going to be held hostage by the rest of the world. They've got the backing now of Russia and China. They should play that to the hilt. They've got their economy, I would argue, is more open now. They've got better economic options now than they did 3-4 months ago, by virtue of these relationships with now Russia and China, and the fact that they've got trade routes open in the East. They're not dependent upon selling things out the Persian Gulf.
I think the outcome of this war is that all these GCC countries really want to improve the relationship with Iran.
Well,
and
yeah, I mean, they've.
It depends on the deal.
Iran has had diplomatic relations with the Saudis since 2023, so it's been more than 3 years. That was restored, and that's real. They've had a longer relationship with Qatar. And they've even sent